All right, it said live 002 immediately, but it still gives people are hearing me say this now most likely, but I'm going to wait.
Okay.
Redirecting to live page. And here we are. So we are live, and folks that are watching have any comments and questions, you can just type them in the chat and I will try to see them. And then we will go from there. So click back over here. All right, so welcome, Diarmid. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. It's nice to see you as always. So before we get into these specifics, why don't you just give folks a little background of how you ended up, or what kind of training you've done with me, because I know it's been over years now.
Yeah, it's been kind of on and off over about, I think about 6 or 7 years even. I've kind of lost track of when that was. And I did, well, I actually did one of your, or signed up for one of your intensives probably around about 6 years ago or something like that. And I think it was like after the actual group thing has happened. And so I think I just kind of got the materials and tried to do it on my own. And I think I got through most of it, but there were sort of places where I got stuck. And so one thing I really noticed about doing it this time is the fact that I was in a group and there were other people doing it at the same time, and there was a sense of, even though we were in different countries and so on, there was a sense of like we were supporting each other and doing it together. Like it was just much easier, I think, to kind of get through the sticking points, or the points that I might have gone, oh, I'm not going to do that, so I'll just move on to the next thing. Like there was much more, I don't know what the word is, but just a kind of sense of like a group energy and a group mutual supportive process.
Yeah, it gives some momentum to it. There's some people who have done some of the trainings, the recorded stuff, and at a certain point I had the attitude that I was not only talking to the people doing it live, but that all of us were all communicating to the people who were doing it later. And ever since having that attitude, I've had people say that they feel like, oh, I feel like I'm there doing it with you guys. And in some sort of quantum level of reality, it's actually true. It's just, and I know Will and I had talked about it as well, that there's a sense of, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but there's some sense that while you're doing it live in the present, you can feel or notice that that the people who are going to do it at some point are there with you doing it.
I think just having that attitude and that awareness that that there are other people kind of beyond what's immediate, that are going to be affected by what you do. I think for me it alters the way that the way that I am, the way that I express myself. And I think, like we're doing this right now, and I'm kind of, all I can see is my computer with you on it and me on it. But there's this sense of like maybe other people are watching, I don't know. And that actually is a little bit scary. Like there's a sense of responsibility somehow.
Right.
That is sort of increased. And my guess is that people maybe kind of appreciate that, like it's like the sense of consideration for the people that are watching. That we're not just having this conversation like in isolation. So.
Right, and then the underlying purpose is for people, because it's difficult, I would guess, for anyone to jump into a training of this nature, and especially it's somewhat unconventional. And I don't present it. I don't present it as life coaching or therapy or anything that's easy to wrap your mind around. And so I think even if someone feels the impetus to get involved with this type of training and experience, they still have the old model of their mind running that's full of skepticism and doubt.
Yeah.
And so then communicating with real people in a real way who are actually considering them at the moment of the choice point where they're deciding whether or not to go forth with it. I think that's extremely helpful as well. So,
Yeah.
and then anyone who happens to want to work with you also may see this video and then have a step up into that experience. So yeah, it's fun, and it's good to have that awareness while you're doing it rather than just some flippant attitude.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, you've done a lot of stuff. I know you came to the live workshop in Norway.
Norway,
which was a lot of fun. So you're welcome to touch on any of the material, the Norway thing, or the most recent intensives, because of course it's not all the same material, but the same type of material at each of the things. So, but the first question goes all the way back before that. So what was, and you can answer this in relation to just the intensives now, or if you remember all the way back before you got into this stuff. But what was life like before you started working with Command Z and myself? If we took a time machine back to where you were before, what challenges were you facing, or what pain or frustration might you have been feeling?
I mean, I think it's probably easiest just to think of it in terms of like the last year, which was sort of the period between the workshop in Norway and then doing this intensive. And like what I was, the process of this last year has kind of been me trying to kind of reorient. Like a job ended at the end of 2018, and then I kind of went into 2019 with this sort of sense of openness and possibility, and I can explore and I can do, you know. So rather than feeling like, oh shit, you know, like I've lost my job and what am I going to do? It was more of this like, okay, so I'm going to explore a bunch of different things and try and get back into being a self-employed therapist, which is what I'm doing. So I've kind of been searching, I've kind of been doing different kinds of workshops. There's this thing called circling that I've been doing, which is about kind of authentic connection with other people and kind of sort of meditative way of interacting and bringing your present experience into connection. And I've been kind of exploring Hakomi again, which is the therapy that I do. So I've kind of been challenging myself in different ways and sort of searching for something. But there's this sense of like trying to like preparing myself for the next stage, or like kind of building myself up and getting ready for sort of the next stage. And when I was, because I'd done the Norway workshop and then I was kind of doing some undoing stuff on my own, I was kind of thinking maybe I can just do all this undoing. Maybe I've kind of done enough of that. I can just kind of carry out on my own. And so when the opportunity to do the intensive came up, I was like really tempted. I was like, oh, you've disappeared.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was, I don't know what happened there, if it was me or
we're still live though.
Yeah, it looks like it's still live.
So anyway, there was this hesitation that I had, kind of thinking, you know, maybe I've got enough on my plate, you know, with learning the things that I'm learning, and I'm going to do like a training in somatic experiencing and so on. It was kind of like, oh, maybe that's enough. But and so I had a call with you, and I don't know, I can't even really remember what happened, but it was just kind of like, I just sort of, the doubt just kind of dissolved, like whatever barrier I was kind of holding on myself to, like against the sort of drive to do it. Just the contact with you, I was just like, I just sort of relaxed. I was like, yeah, this is, why would I not do this, you know? So
yeah, that's awesome.
What happened? Yeah.
Very cool. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because there's always that. I mean, for me still, and I'm 15 years or so, or 20 years into the undoing work, there's still, when I push it or I go to learn something new, I notice that the resistance is always, there's some quality of resistance. And actually what I've learned this year recently, that it's is that the resistance is what fashions me into the next thing that I'm meant to become. And up until now, this year, I kind of always saw it as something to overcome, or that I had to transcend, to like dominate, or I don't know how I was viewing it before that. But now this year has been a switch into this either seeking out or welcoming or throwing out something in front of me to create resistance deliberately.
Yeah, that makes sense. Seems to work that way.
Just kind of a fascinating switch, because I think a lot of people just bounce from one resistance to the next, or shrink down from it. But it's very good sense to really be able to project one out on purpose.
Yeah, it's kind of like we need that. It's sort of like we need that hard object to kind of climb on. You know, it's like the resistance. It's sort of like it provides friction or something. You know, it's like something real to like actually sort of overcome, rather than just be like, oh, I don't want to look at the thing that's really real and hard.
Right.
This opportunity.
Yeah, it can be really extremely useful in that regard. It's fascinating.
So yeah, I mean, I think I kind of know what the questions are going to be in this interview. So I'm kind of relating like the past year to this sense of this kind of subtle sense of performance anxiety, which sometimes is much more acute, is much more intense, and sometimes it's kind of in the background, and it's actually more sort of it's more powerful when it's in the background, because I can believe that I'm acting out of something else. So there's this sense of like needing to be ready, like needing to be good enough in order to do the work that is going to make me okay. You know, like I think we're kind of fed that sort of paradigm, right, through education and so on. It's like, you know, the goal of your life is to be good at this thing, or to be a certain kind of person that performs well in this situation, and so, you know, you're not actually enough until you get there. So anyway, yeah, that sort of paradigm is sort of in the background in my mind, and I know that one of the biggest things I got out of the intensive was sort of just waking up to that. You know, like one of the things that we were doing was there was this exercise where you kind of imagine something that you want to achieve in the future, and then you vividly like fill out that reality and kind of try and inhabit it. And that within the context of what you call 100% juice, or 100% self-acceptance, there's something about those two. There's like that's sort of like the container is the 100% self-acceptance, and then putting that sort of goal into my mind within that container just kind of really showed me like that some of the motivation, not all of it, was from this like, I'm doing this in order to become okay, in order to accept myself, and try to move towards that. But the 100% self-acceptance, the more I was cultivating that, the more I realized that was futile, because it's already there. And so there's this kind of sort of absurd conflict which goes on, because part of me is so attached to that process of like moving towards being good enough to love myself unconditionally. But it's already here, it's already available. So there's part of me going, no, I don't want to accept myself. I want, you know, unconditionally. I want it to be conditional, you know. And so there's this sort of painful kind of conflict that can go on inside me with that. And I felt like there were times where I just completely let go of that. You know, it was just like there's something to do with the combination of the physical exercises, releasing all the tensions that are associated with that, that just allowed me to kind of relax back into just like seeing the sort of basic truth of self-acceptance, of just being okay, just being completely okay as I am. And it feels like it kind of happens in waves, you know, like it's not like I access that and then that's where I dwell or where I am the whole time. It feels like I kind of clamp down again and I go back into the sense of more, I guess, insecurity or a sense of like that life is threatening and I have to sort of work to overcome that. But it definitely feels like that, like this work allows me to experience that more deeply, because it's not like I haven't had those kind of insights before, you know, or just sort of read things that really resonate with me about, you know, that actually I'm okay as I am, and you just have to sort of access that. But definitely this process of the intensives like allowed me to open up into that and relax into that more deeply than I think I have done before. So that's just, you know, that's just absolutely priceless. You know?
Oh, that's amazing. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's week one, you know, that you were discussing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was like in the first 2 weeks that I kind of accessed that and sort of had that kind of insight. And yeah, and the rest of it was a different part of the journey, but it just kind of in the, you know, in the aftermath of that, I suppose.
Yeah. So any other ahas or epiphanies that you had throughout the rest of the intensive?
Let's see. I mean, I think that one was big. Let's see. I don't know why, but what's coming to me is one of the days was around the theme of death and accepting, facing death to come back to life.
Oh yeah, that was one of the bonus trainings within one of the weeks.
Yeah. And so why is that coming to me as like an aha? I'm not sure, but there's something about just kind of how satisfying that was, and how it wasn't like, you know, like I spent an hour in a graveyard and contemplating stuff. I just really liked how open that was. It wasn't like go to a graveyard and think about this or do this. It was just be there, and you know, there weren't any kind of metaphysical ideas about what death is or what happens after death and so on. It was just like looking at that, and from that bonus workshop, writing an obituary for myself. That was amazing. Just because it was just so, you know, like, unless it just seems pretty likely that I'm going to have an obituary at some point, you know, like people just write obituaries for people that die. And so like that is a thing that is, I'm like 99% sure is going to exist. Is like, you know, just like one page or something summing up my life. And it's like, in a way that's kind of course that seems absurd and a bit tragic that like, okay, we'll just talk about it for a page and then that's it.
You'd hope it would be the entire newspaper at least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like just looking at that and realizing that is just this kind of mundane, everyday reality that every day people die, and I'm going to be one of those people one day. It's just so normal. So there was something really powerful about just seeing that. It was just like, okay, so yeah, well, I'm not going to waste any more of my life in, you know, in any more kind of distortion or suffering than I need to. So it was a good kick up the ass.
That's awesome. And it makes me think like you could spend the next 20 years on this giant accomplishment, and it might add one line to the
yeah, exactly.
Story, you know?
Yeah.
And he also started built 20 skyscrapers. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like for you, that was like, oh, that was the best part of my life to accomplish.
Yeah, I really suffered because it was such hard work, but like, yes, I got something else in my obituary that's like gonna last 100 years.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I think it has a lot of other effects that we might not even be aware of, but the process of doing it, I think it's just clean out all these other. I mean, probably starts to clean out a lot of the reasons that we're doing things that we probably don't need to be doing with our life. Like if you realize the goal was just to make yourself okay, and it's not really going to amount to a lot of joy and direct fulfillment while you're doing it. Yeah, it kind of just gets tossed away without any thought.
Yeah. And I think it seems like that's what a lot of the exercises in the course have to do with. It's sort of making conscious what you're already doing unconsciously, and then you can choose whether or not to keep doing that. But it's like just sort of an invitation to take responsibility for all sorts of things, for like, okay, so you believe that your life is about gaining approval from a certain group or your family or whatever. Like, okay, do you want to keep believing that? Is that, do you set that, you're taking responsibility for that. It's not just true outside of yourself. Can you actually let go of that? And so, yeah, so it just, I mean, it feels like the intensive had a big impact on me, which is kind of worth the effort and the price and so on in itself. But it also just feels like it's almost kind of like breaking up the soil, ready for spring, and so you can plant some stuff. Like it feels like it's just kind of showed me all these different possibilities for growth that's it's almost a little bit, like there's so much content in there that there's so many different pathways that I could follow that it's almost a bit overwhelming to kind of think, oh, because I want to do it all. But but I can just do one thing at a time. So it's exciting. And I know that when there was a period after the intensive where I sort of stopped doing the work as much, and I did notice that I guess it was other things that were going on for me, but I sort of started to close down a bit. So it just it shows me, like, why would I, if I have the choice to keep doing the work, then why would I allow myself to not do that?
Yeah. Well, I think a natural expansion and contraction, because it's more like a pulse than it is like a straight drive.
Yes.
Trying to rush to get anywhere. So then I found that with a lot of different practices that I know my friend E.J. Gold would teach. When you first start doing a new practice that he introduces you to, you do it every day for, say, 3 weeks. and then you take 1 week and don't do it at all and notice what goes on in your life. And I actually get this contrast. You resume it again the following week, but with a huge amount of motivation to keep doing it. So that you're not doing it for some idea or because he said to do it, but suddenly it becomes something that you've chosen to do on your own. Very cool. So, and then the final question I have, and again, you can go all over the place wherever you want to go with it, but is, and you kind of answered this, but what did you create for yourself by going through the program? So like, what results are you seeing now that maybe you weren't seeing before?
The results that I'm seeing now, it seems like it's easier to let go of things. Like, what I mean is, if I have an emotional reaction to something, which a lot of people would call being triggered, I'm able to kind of stand back from that reaction more easily, and kind of let it go without sort of trying to solve it or interfere with it. And sometimes that means maybe like doing some face stretching or doing the shoulders or flops or something to kind of get me more in touch with my body. But it just seems like it's like I catch my mind lying to myself more easily. It's like I kind of like I'm wise. It's like I'm more wise to the ways that I bullshit myself, you know, and the connection, the assumptions that I have about the connections between, okay, so I feel this way, so that means that X, Y, Z, or this is happening, and so so I'm going to feel this way now, and like I catch my mind sort of making those bridges between things, and I sort of I'm able to be like, well, okay, so this thing happened. It doesn't mean that I have to feel this way. It doesn't mean like, because there can be something so seductive about a strong emotion. Like, it wants you to feel it. It wants you to believe that it's important. You know, and I think we do need to feel what happens and allow it to pass through. But there's so many ways in which I can feed that energy, you know, by sort of being like, yeah, this thing happened and it's not fair, like it should be different. So I find it much easier to just let go of that stuff.
It's interesting what you just said there, because there's a lot of, I see a lot of, I don't know, commonplace or market, you know, training for the masses, let's call it, I don't know what else to say. That is this school of thought of like allowing all the emotions. There's some kernel of truth to that, but I think more like the Rainer Maria Rilke sense that he describes in Letters to a Young Poet, where it's like, oh, if there's a sadness in you, notice it, let it run through, and then look at what it has left when it's gone. So it's a very poetic way to say it as well, but that he's not saying believe in the meaning that your mind gives it and then indulge yourself in behaviors in reaction to the meaning that you feel compulsively, you know, drawn to express. So, but a lot of people without this embodied form of experience that comes from what you just did might interpret that as, if I'm angry, everybody's going to hear about it, for example. You know what I mean? And that's one way of interpreting, feel everything that you feel.
Yeah.
Another way would be sit there, shut up, let it just boil inside you, and completely feel it. Don't resist it at all.
Yeah.
Don't even utter a word about it to anyone else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the translation of the feeling or emotion into behavior usually happens via interpreting the meaning of the physical sensation, which essentially is always a lie. Any interpretation we give of a feeling is always an abstraction from what the direct experience of it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I know I'm quite wary of any what's the word? I'm kind of a loss for a word, but any sort of technique that's sort of like a claims to be a catch-all, like this is how to deal with your emotions, and then you just use that in every situation. Like you should express them or you should feel them. I just think it, like there's sort of there's probably in all those different ways there's probably some truth,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what I want is to be able to have that kind of meta awareness to be able to decide in this moment like what seems like the best way to navigate. Maybe it's to go more inside and just feel it. Maybe it's more of an interpersonal thing that needs to happen. I need to express it, and I want to know what the other person's experience of that is, you know. But it's like the awareness is more fundamental than like I'm going to give you this technique and now this is like, and then you just don't take responsibility. Oh, I've got this technique, I'm following this therapist or this teacher, they say to do it this way, so like that's justifying me and like in sort of venting my anger or getting you to hear my feelings or something. Like you should hear them, you know.
Right.
It's like I really believe in myself taking more responsibility and helping others to take that responsibility for their own, you know, their own choices. So.
Yeah, I like how you describe that too, as this meta awareness, and that actually seems to take away the sting of any one particular intense emotional experience. Like if it's not, you're not fully identified with it, like I am anger, you know, and which is, at least for me in my life before all this stuff, there was no discernment of the difference between the thing I was feeling and who I was. It was like all bound up into one, you know.
Yeah. And that can, I think that can lead to further feelings of like pride or shame, even. Like if I am my anger, then it's like, fuck, I have to hide who I am and I have to get rid of it. Or if I am my bliss and ecstasy, and then it's like, oh wow, this is who I really am, and like wow, that means I'm more special than everyone else, rather than just like here it is, like not identifying with any of it. I think is what's liberating.
I like there's that line I think I put this into the intensive somewhere. It was that line by Daniel Higgs. Our parade of circumstances is itself a melody.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I listened to his very strange music. I like the way he sings and everything. Like I listened to part of it and it's like, yeah, this is going to be an acquired taste maybe, but yeah, but the lyrics are amazing.
Yeah, it's like you can almost see like you got this nice seat at the parade, and what's occurring in the parade is everything that could possibly happen inside or out. You know?
Yeah. I'm just not identifying with it. Like doing this right now gives me, or I give myself self-consciousness and anxiety because it's live, and because there's part of me that's like, oh, you have to sound smart, you have to look like you've got your life together, and that, you know, I have to please Garrett and say the right things.
I was already pleased before we started.
And so like you're already pleased, yeah. Like why should I take responsibility for how pleased you feel? But there's something about this that even just like it's okay for me to be nervous, like okay for me to be a complete mess, like in public. And there's part of me that's not okay with it, but like it just feels so liberating that I don't have to solve this, you know.
Right, that's
like,
super cool. That's
because like if I'm waiting till I don't feel nervous about expressing myself publicly, then like it's probably never going to happen, you know, and that's not the point. And I think people connect with us more easily when they can see our authentic vulnerability and, you know, our shyness. Or there are actually ways that people connect, you know. Like I see people on your mutant survival week doing their videos, and like I see their shyness, and it doesn't make me go, oh, that person's weak and stupid. It makes me go,
Things like that, right?
what a lovely person. Like I wanna hang out with them, or I want to let them know that I like them. You know, so that's how it feels. But from the inside, it can feel just like, oh shit, like I'm really vulnerable. You know, I'm making myself vulnerable to attack. But you're actually inviting the opposite.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like, where are all these people? Where are all these judgmental haters? Actually, you know what I mean? It's like there's less of them outside than there are in our own heads.
Exactly.
And if one does show up, if someone shows up and puts a comment like, "Look at this shy asshole," you know, everyone would be like, "Who is this jerk?" You know what I mean? Like, the reaction would be against the hater more than it would be, judging the actual person doing the thing.
Yeah. It's a strange phenomenon, that whole thing.
It's great hanging out. I'm glad that came up. One other thing that came to mind while you're saying it was I won't say what the exercise is because I'd like it all to be surprises, but when you ended up going out and talking to the guy who was working at the roadworks.
Oh yeah.
Something, I don't know what it was about that, but it's something about the way you expressed it. I could feel it, and it was like, whoa, this was some real connection, you know?
Yeah. It was. What you want me to talk about that?
If you want to, if you're inspired.
Yeah. Let's see. What do I remember of that? There was something. It just really, you know, I think sometimes we just pick things up intuitively about, you know, and I feel drawn to people, and I don't know why. And so there was this guy working on his own, and there was this like flatbed truck, and he was loading all this. There had been roadworks happening. And I think they'd finished, and they had to load this truck up with all the stuff. And I think maybe he just looked friendly or looked sad or something, and I just was looking for people random people to talk to. And so I just went up to him and I just said something like, "Oh, you're working on your own, are you?" And he immediately just turned, like, and he really wanted to speak to me, you know. And he was just really friendly, and we had a little chat, and he was working on his own, and he also he said he had a broken rib, like he'd been to the hospital the day before and he'd cracked his rib working. And I was like, why are you doing this on your own then? And they just said, oh, I would need to get a doctor's note, and like I didn't get that, and they're short, you know, they're short on staff and so on. So it was just, and I actually felt like I really wanted to go behind the fence and help him. And I even said, like, if I could, I would come and help you, but I don't think that would be allowed, or I don't have time or something. And I think just, yeah, I don't know. It just felt like a special little moment of acknowledging somebody. He was working on his own, and it was cold, and it was, you know, and he was in pain, and there was something just about acknowledging that other person that was really special. And it seemed to kind of, like, I imagine like it could have just made a difference to his day, that somebody noticed that he was working in pain and on his own, and he didn't think there was anything he could do about it. So
there's so many layers to that. It's like, because we all benefit from his work, you know, but yet I don't know the last time I've ever seen any kind of celebration of a road worker. You know?
I think we take these guys for granted so much, you know, as we drive around and walk around, and
sometimes people are angry at them.
Yeah, like the fact that we're having this, like the fact that I'm able to connect with you through broadband means that some guys have spent hours digging through concrete in order to lay the cables, and you know what I mean? It's like we just kind of go, oh, that's just what men do, but like it's, you know, it's tough work, and they hurt themselves, and yeah, so it felt good. Like I never speak to those guys, you know. I pass by them all the time, so. And I guess I have this assumption that they wouldn't want to speak to me, or they wouldn't need like empathy, or you know, which are just horrible things to think, really.
I know.
They're tough. They're just tough guys. Like,
Yeah.
I spoke to one of them, and he was in pain. He was feeling vulnerable. He was lonely. He wanted to. He immediately just like wanted to connect, you know, and he just kind of opened up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So cool. It brings appreciation for so many things. Just that one conversation. It makes me then rethink everything, what I'm seeing and how the city is composed.
Yeah. It just kind of, it's just another one of those, like a lot of the exercises just revealed to me how I, you know, and we kind of have to do this. It's like we sort of like kind of cut and paste our expectations onto reality just to make it simple. Whereas actually, if we were to sort of take what we've pasted off and really look at what's going on there, it's so much more interesting and complex, and you know, potentially it's not what you want to see or something, but like it just showed me like life, you know, like you're all about life being an adventure, and I kind of think that's what you mean, is that the ordinary world is only seems ordinary because we've done that, because we've kind of made, you know, sort of necessarily been lazy about how we interpret it, and you can just choose not to do that. So.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful sentiment at the end. It's very, very cool, and it's great to communicate with you about this, because from creating these things, and I've been through, any experience I'm trying to create for other people, I've been through, but it's always different to hear it mirrored back to me, and to know what it was like for you, because your whole nervous system and experience and tension map and way of interacting is completely different. And so like I get to learn so much about the world and myself and you and everyone in it, just through having a conversation like this.
Yeah, I think that's what's so rich about doing this work in a group and having an online group, because you can be doing the same exercises, but everyone's having like such different experiences, and just makes it really rich.
I know some part of me wants it to be like Big Brother, that show or something, where we can just have like a GoPro camera on for 24 hours during the whole time and just like check it. Hey, did you guys see that? You know?
Yeah, I think that would be a bit too much. It'd be nice to have that level of intimacy sometimes, maybe.
Well, that's what the week-long, workshops are about. It's not all night, but where you get to live in the richness of the shared experience for longer than just a couple hours.
Yeah, cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's good for now. We really dug into it, but and then from the sounds of it, I'll be seeing you out here. If the Lord is willing and the creek don't rise by July, and so folks can meet you, and maybe we'll talk privately, but we can maybe arrange some kind of adapted circling thing so folks can experience what you were.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that can overlap with the doing work. So definitely, and other things maybe.
Yeah, very cool. All right, man. Well, thanks again, Diarmid, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks, Garrett.
All right, have fun. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.